Thanks, everyone. So we have a few minutes before lunch for questions. Do folks have questions? Okay, if you could come to the microphone, if it's not too much trouble, that would be great. The session is being recorded. Whoever's first. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Evan Owens and Veo. I'm on the EPUB working group. Your feedback on the next EPUB 3.1 was most welcome, so feel free to comment on the website. My question, though, is in any of these book projects, are you going to be supporting accessibility?
Accessibility has been a big part of our conversation. Because this is on the web, we have accessibility, within the book, but also of the website itself. And so that's something our developer and Matt Gold at CUNY have been working a lot on, or discussing a lot. How are we going to make these things accessible? It's one of our priorities. And especially as a press with a disability study list, we have to practice what we preach here. So it's very important to us to do that. Yeah.
Anyone else want to?
We're not actually going to have an access interface associated, so the production of the book and the HTML and the structure will be in place and important to create anchors in the text when it's displayed elsewhere. So we're very conscious of that as well.
And our UX process has identified some issues about accessibility, so we are going to be focusing on those along with a lot of other things.
Yes.
Next question. Yeah.
All really fascinating projects. I wanted to ask Susan a question specifically about Manifold Scholarship because it seems to me the most ambitious going forward, especially the idea of keeping an iterative publication going, gathering commentary, all of that sort of thing. Can you talk about how, as a university press, how you build business models around keeping stuff alive over the long term, which is a different kind of problem than, for instance, at Michigan, about the sort of deep storage preservation Hydra repository kind of thing. You're talking about keeping things alive over the long haul. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's been a big question for us. Manifold in its current version is, of course, open access, and this is because it's funded. It doesn't need to be open access. You could put a paywall up there and create a revenue stream, which would be one mode of a business model. But with the iterative ongoing publication, what we've found early on is that scholars are more interested in the iteration before formal release rather than the iteration after formal release. And so that will have to develop over time. We want the mode of working with the editors, the procedures to address how we can be efficient so that we can maintain it over time. But so far we haven't had a lot of demand on that aspect of it from the authors. They're interested in early iteration rather than later iteration.
Well, can you talk about it with respect to the debates in the digital humanities? Because that's a site that's been online for 4 years.
4 years, yeah.
Or something. Are there ongoing costs to keeping that alive, or not so much anymore?
So what we've done with, the site itself, CUNY has the ongoing hosting costs and, just keeping the code base going, but, and that was also done by Cast Iron. We've really let it be a free-form interaction and with very little moderation. So there's not a lot of human time spent, within the conversations. As part of the project, we were able to hire a graduate fellow to do some analysis of that annotation interaction. So we understand better how people have used it. And his report I just got, and I haven't actually finished reading it, so I can't share with you what he found. With Manifold, the business model is really interesting. We've been talking a lot about how to create a business model around it. And right now it's really this hybrid environment of we have the print, the paid ebook, and then the open access site. And part of doing the project is seeing how that all works out. What sort of revenue comes back to us for these products? And is this a sustainable model? We don't know the answer to that yet. And it's been a lot of discussion in the last 3 months. Specifically in the project, we're trying to figure out the business models. Yeah.
Time for one more question, please.
Great stuff, you guys. This is really exciting to see. One of the questions that I have had in the past is that in the humanities, in particular in social sciences too, tenure and promotion is associated with the object and the creation of a tailored to the content item. An awful lot of these projects are kind of going into a process. It's not a craft. It's a process of putting stuff out. How are you going to work that conflict in terms of attracting humanities scholars who are not yet tenured or want to become full professors or whatever it is, when it's not bespoke, when it's part of a homogeneous mass?
Well, ours is essentially designed to create an efficient way for presses or aggregators of ebooks to make a more interesting homogeneous mass, right? So not homogeneous, but something you can navigate through. So we're assuming the pre-existence of standalone books, and then we may be changing them in some ways as they are gathered into a corpus. But all of the books we assume would be part of this group would have whatever peer review and credentialing resources that they would get normally. So we're not really concerned about individual authors as much as we are about presses and how we can make more interesting stuff efficiently.
We are formally publishing a printed edition of all Manifold books, and that is considered the release version, and that will be the analogous edition of, Manifold's, the online edition at the time of that release, and then it could further change. So there will be a formal published print edition for now, for just those reasons, for tenure and validation. But because they are working with the university press, because they're going through the same peer review process they would go through for a print book, some of those things that we bring to a book in terms of the validation will still exist. And so should there be a time where we step away from print, and I don't see that in our future right now, we're hoping that the same quality that we bring to it today would still exist in these other products.
Yeah, for the tools we're building, I think they could support either model. For our fifth case study, for our title that we're going to publish in the platform, we plan to unveil it all at once on the platform. Schedule a publication date for the whole title, and then it all goes up at once. But one could certainly, with the way we're designing it, do iterative publishing on the platform if that's what they chose. So it's sort of an editorial choice about how you treat the tools.
I think ours is probably the most conservative of all the projects in the sense that it's trying to fix the way that we publish most of the books, not the edge cases or the most innovative, but to sort of free up resources to do that kind of work by doing the bulk of the work of the presses more efficiently. So we won't put anybody at risk. They'll all get tenure.
Everybody wins. Thank you again to our speakers. And once more, I have to say thank you to Charles Watkinson of University of Michigan, who was the original organizer of this panel. He is the one who put it all together. So thank you, Charles. And thank you all for coming.